Well, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Kate Downs. I use they and she pronouns. I am a food systems project manager with Seven Valleys Health Coalition, and I focus on food systems work and maternal health work because we're the rural health network for Cortland County here in central New York. I mentioned Avery. She's going to keep track of the chat for us. So just pop any questions into there. We're going to hold all questions to the end of the panel. And yeah, so I'm going to introduce the panelists and give each of them a few minutes to introduce their organization and talk about all the good work they do. So, and apologies if I mispronounce your name. I'm sorry in advance. Today we're going to hear from Marisha McMorran, who is the Executive Director at Food Connection, located in Asheville, North Carolina. And, hang on, sorry. Food Connection rescues surplus prepared food from catering companies, conference centers, universities, and institutions. Danielle Todd is the Executive Director at Make Food Not Waste. Make Food Not Waste is a Detroit-based nonprofit that works to keep food out of landfills. Through its flagship program, the Upcycling Kitchens, 5 staffed professional chefs prepare 2,000 to 4,000 community meals each week, all from food that would otherwise go to waste. Shavrik is the Executive Director at the Minaret Foundation located in Texas. The Minaret Foundation is a nonprofit bringing faith communities together to change the world around us through multi-faith and civic engagement. Kendra from the University of Kentucky is originally from Burma, Myanmar, and is a registered dietitian and PhD candidate working as the Director of Community Outreach at the University of Kentucky in the Department of Dietetics and Human Nutrition. Kendra oversees a student-led service organization called the Campus Kitchen Chapter that aims to reduce food waste, address food and nutrition inequalities, and empower intergenerational community. Brandice Kircher is the Food Justice Director at Tikkun Ha'ir, which means repair the city in Hebrew. Tikkun Ha'ir is a Jewish social justice and social action nonprofit that works with the entire community of Milwaukee. Well, thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to just I'm going to pass the mic over to Marisha to kick us off with a brief introduction of yourself and your organization.
Hi, Kate. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone at Seven Valleys Health Coalition for inviting me to participate today. As Kate had mentioned, Food Connection is a nonprofit based in Asheville, North Carolina. We focus pretty much solely on rescued prepared food. We have other food banks and organizations who clean and rescue produce and other shelf-stable goods from grocery stores. So we really focus on prepared food. We were launched in 2015, and up until the pandemic, we really operated more of as a logistics organization because all of our bulk volumes of prepared food went directly to agency partners, shelters, faith-based groups who serve the community, primarily led by volunteers. And then when the pandemic shut businesses down, our food supply was almost non-existent, with the exception of a couple of retirement communities who were still serving their population. And we had to make a decision because there was, of course, so much need at that time. So we pivoted our model to raise money to buy chef-prepared meals to distribute to the community, which helped meet the growing need in the community, especially in those, for several months before all of our unemployment and PPP loans came through. And so we were doing curbside drive-throughs. And then it was also helping to infuse money back into the local food systems and support the chefs who would donate when they could. And we distributed about 100,000 meals over the course of the next year through that program. And then May of 2021, 2 things happened. Our funding for chef meals began to dry up and food rescue became plentiful again. And we had to make a decision. And at first we thought we would just go back to the way that things were before we were shut down by the pandemic. But the reality was every day we were calling these communities and telling them that we couldn't bring individual meals. And through a deeper dive, we realized for our area how large the gap is and how many people are living with food insecurity who don't qualify for assistance or have other barriers, transportation, location, access to food. So we launched a pilot program to see if we could repackage the prepared food into individual nutritionally balanced eat and serve meals. And it was a success. We have the food supply to support that. So we launched our mobile meals program. We did a fundraising campaign to build out a really cool food truck that is just full of refrigeration, but it's got lights and music, and you wouldn't know that it was free, repurposed food pulling up to it. So we really focus on affordable after-school programs, early learning centers, immigrant and migrant communities, and other areas that we've identified that have high food insecurity and limited access to prepared food. So we, at this point, are around 1,000 individual meals per week and growing as our capacity grows. And then we still distribute around between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds of prepared food still to our agency partners.
Thank you. Danielle, can we hear from you about Make Food Not Waste?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle. I'm with the Detroit-based nonprofit Make Food Not Waste. And we too learned a lot in the pandemic and kind of we existed before the pandemic, but we changed a lot of what we were doing because of what we were seeing. What we found in Detroit, where the gap was, is that there is food that's available and edible and useful, but someone would actually need to cook it and do something to it in order to make it truly useful to the community. So it could be things like if a food pantry has a lot of bananas and they aren't able to distribute it in enough time, and the bananas turn brown or darker, and they make great banana bread, but it's not all that great to hand somebody at a pantry a bunch of really overripe bananas and expect them to do something with it. That's where we come in. So we take in things that sometimes people wouldn't typically think that you would cook with. So it might be the meat trim from a steak restaurant, or leftover pierogi dough scraps from people who make pierogies. These are all kind of byproducts of what other people use in their restaurants or in their food processing or manufacturing service. And it's still food, and it's still, usable, and oftentimes just gets thrown out because no one really takes the time to basically deal with it. So we have a team of 5 professional chefs, and we operate out of 2 kitchens in they're underused kitchens. So we don't have to pay for our own kitchen and build it and all that kind of stuff. And our chefs make anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 meals a week, all from food that comes in from, my word, every possible place you can think of. Some of it's leftover from food pantries. We call that rescuing the rescue. It could be from farms. It could be from restaurants, like I said, like meat trim. Every week is different. The menu's different every week. The ingredients are always different. The chefs never know what they're going to get ahead of time. Yesterday we got a half pallet of ginger. So that's all going to go into something at some point. So I think what makes us different is that whereas there are people in the Detroit area that make meals for folks that need it, like shelters and that sort of thing. What's different about us is that we really kind of push the idea of what you can cook with, which really goes a long way to making sure that we're reducing waste overall. What else can I say about us? I think what else makes us a little different in our area is that like I said, our chefs are professionals, and they're all women. They reflect the community we serve, so the food is always culturally appropriate. But most importantly, it's awesome. It tastes so good. And it's food that we would be proud to serve our friends and family. Like, this is not, a lot of times charitable food can be delivered to people, and I've heard people say, well, if people are hungry enough, they'll eat it. Well, that's not the case, and it's not nice. So we don't do that. We also know that if the food doesn't taste good, that people will throw it away, and that defeats our purpose of making sure that we're making food not waste. So that's a little bit about us, and happy, of course, to answer questions and to tell you more in the roundtable.
Thank you. Sharik?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharik from Minaret Foundation. I'm the executive director here. As it was mentioned, we are in Texas. And our focus is, what we do is we bring Muslims, Jews, and Christians together. First part is the barbecue discussion and the dodgeball. And then we answer that age-old question of, we've held hands, we've sung Kumbaya, what do we do next? And for us, that next step is leveraging our faith to change the world around us, specifically in the areas of child welfare, food insecurity, and religious freedom. Really happy to say that in this past legislative session, Governor Abbott signed 5 of our bills. Two of them related to child welfare. We eliminated the restraint of children in the state of Texas. And we increased training for all judges in Texas by 1 hour to learn more about family violence, specifically child-related abuse. And then we passed 3 laws on religious freedom. So very happy about that, and we're diligently working on more legislation for the next session. But in the meantime, we are, specifically as it relates to food insecurity, we're bringing together our clergy to work on a program called Pulpits, Pews, and Pantries, which creates the need and the desire to create a pantry just as much. Whenever there's a new church plant or a new synagogue or a new mosque, we're always thinking about our pulpits, we're thinking about our pews, but are we also thinking about our pantries as well, right? So as we vision board and as we plan the growth and the strategic planning for our faith centers, we have to have these pantries. So providing the support and the programmatic support they need to get these pantries made. So bottom line, in Texas, faith works big. It's a cornerstone of our state, and it's how we get things moving here. And so we're proud to be in this space. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Kendra?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I have a hard time trying to unmute myself. So are you all able to hear me? Okay, perfect. I'm still dealing with COVID right now. And so bear with me as I kind of maybe blank in terms of what I might be trying to say, or if I need to mute myself to cough. But my name is Kendra. It's nice to have all of these people fighting these food issues in one place together, and I'm privileged and I'm definitely humbled to be a part of this community. So my work as part of it, so with Campus Kitchen, we recover food. So these are all like student-led model, and so college students are the one volunteering to recover the food. So that's kind of the unique or the difference part, where we would then get those food from UK Dining, which is by Aramark right now, and then UK Hospital, which is currently under Morrison Healthcare. And then we also go to a lot of grocery stores as part of our community partnership in a farmers market. And so we would partner with Glen, Kentucky, or Food Chain, who are nonprofit community organizations that already are recovering food or have established relationship with them. And then we provide student volunteers to them. And then in return, we also get some of the food to bring back to the kitchen. So it's a very mutual relationship that we try to like help each other out with those food sources. And then after that, all these students bring the food back to the kitchen in our campus. We have like about 2 commercial refrigerator and 1 freezer, and then like a small, maybe we can fit about 10 to 12 folks in a kitchen sort of setting, like 2 big stainless steel top, that kind of thing, stove, oven, and then so we pretty much, the students then prepare those meals using the food that we recover. So some of them are prepared, and so if it is prepared, we will make sure to add that with fresh fruits and veggies, and then packet it up, and we can send it as cold meal or hot meal, and send it to go. But if it is like non-prepared, then we are cooking from scratch. And so all these students also come from different majors. And so we have students representing all colleges, and from I think 50 to, actually from 100 plus majors. And so they all have different experiences and capacity in what they know about food safety and washing, and how often they volunteer, once a week or every single day, or just dropping by so that they can just check the box on service learning, hours requirement. It all can be very varied, and then you have to kind of like work with them. And so after they prepare those meals, then we then serve meals on campus with students on campus as well. And so all these students who volunteer can get a meal, but also other people who can't volunteer can also come by and get the meal. But we also have it open for faculty and staff to come by. We just don't try to make it too oversharing to the point where we cannot maintain it. Then we also send out meals to subsidized housing. And so those particularly older adults living in those low-income subsidized housing area that we partner with. And so that's kind of where we go and hand deliver the meals and engage and create an intergenerational community. We do a lot of nutrition education and sort of like trivia and games and bingo and stuff like that too, with people who come into our space and or to the spaces that we go to. Thank you for having me.
Sounds amazing. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Brandice.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, my name is Brandis, but that's my parents' fault for spelling it. I'm a food justice director at Tikkun Hayir. Tikkun Hayir in Hebrew means repair the city. We focus on Milwaukee. I'm recognizing there's a lot of repair all over the world, but we just focus on Milwaukee, and we focus on social justice and social action pursuits. So my realm is in food justice. We also have a Jewish educator. They work a lot with interfaith agencies and voter engagement, and just basically other blanketed issues of justice. My program takes quite a bit of my time. My main focus is gleaning. Gleaning is collecting extra harvest, and we do get other food, but we truly stick to that. Our meal is focused around vegetables. So our meal program runs with the market season here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's never as long as I'd like. I get to start gleaning in July. I just finished last week, so it wasn't too bad. So our meal program runs for 14 weeks. We have 1 day a week where we process all the vegetables and to make meals for up to 400, which doesn't sound like a lot in comparison to some of the other programs, but just the process, which is one chef that we have helping us because it's such a large format, who is a spectacular person in their field. They do need to be present to make, if you're a home cook, it's just not the same. I recognize that when he's absent. But we need volunteers as well as some part-time staff we were able to hire with a grant this year, which was a summer intern, as well as someone like kind of for a program from the carceral system back into regular society. It's just like a little in between part-time seasonal, kitchen hand position. It was lovely. We could do that. We'd like to expand on that and make our chef more of a mentor. Listening to Danielle talk about what they're doing in Detroit, I feel like I need to have a conversation offline. But the reason we only make about 400 meals is because even with people processing the veggies all day, they have to cook, they have to cool down. And then we also have volunteers deliver them. So that's another layer. We received a large grant with the Medical College of Wisconsin this year. We did a focus on early learning centers, and we delivered to 10 of those weekly, plus different shelters that we've had affiliations with for years. Coon High Year is 20 years old, and Veggie Chop Shop, our meal program, has been running since 2015. I came from the food bank where I was always apologizing on my end, how things are structured there and how I was their representative and I couldn't get them their food because I don't drive a truck. And now I pick up the food myself. We insulated a cooler with our grant money this year with a cool bot to store all our produce. And we shared the space with other food ministry people at a Lutheran church. So we cooked out of their church. They have a produce stand 3 times a week. I would pass produce to them. They would pass produce to me. We also had 3 opportunities to go to a lovely CSA regenerative farm. Please help me. You know what I'm trying to say. And we got to go onto the farm and glean, and then subsequent touch other large pantries in the city with a large quantity of the produce we picked. So I would say we redistribute tons of fresh produce, which needs to be put into the community where there's no grocery stores, and we produce some really quality vegetarian meals. And I apologize, I can't talk today, I guess.
We're human, right? We can only do so much. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen so that we can better see our speakers, our panelists' faces. And any of our panelists are welcome to answer. So just go for that. We've heard a lot about different food rescue organizations and the work that people are doing. And already in this panel, we can see how varied it looks depending on the community. What prompted your organization to get into the to-go meals or the meal prep work? And how do you find the community? Like, how do you identify the people in need? Marisha?
Yeah, I would love to speak to that. As I said briefly in my introduction, the motivation for us moving towards to-go meals was because of the great need in our area and barriers to access. And then Asheville has the highest cost of living in the state. So we have a lot of folks who live in that gap. And I'm glad that you asked the question about how do we find the people. For us, that's not the problem. For us is how do we prioritize communities, because we're being approached every single week with, we partner with school systems, affordable after-school programs, early childhood learning. We work with community connectors, we call them, who may live next door, for one example, live next door to a low-income apartment complex that's predominantly seniors, and if they're not homebound, they don't qualify for Meals on Wheels. So we'll have an individual come and take 20 meals. So the distribution part isn't on ours, but this came up in our breakout this morning too, as we don't take any qualifications when you come to ask for meals, and it's free. It's food for all approach, which limits some of our funding from Feeding America and some other funders that want to see that, but it makes it harder for us to prioritize without playing God. I guess I'll just say it like that. So we don't make any unilateral decisions and make those decisions as a group, but that's really difficult when our resources are limited and there is so much need. So I don't have a good answer to that, but we try quarterly to have check-ins with our staff and our community connectors and make sure that our distributions are value producing and it's being well received and it's working. And we don't have a great formula for deciding who to serve first, or food rescue is inconsistent too. So sometimes what we're looking at is a decrease in our food supply over the winter months here in North Carolina, and if we have to scale back, who do we not serve? So really more questions than answers that I have, but anybody else who's doing this work that has a great system, I would love to hear about it.
I'm gonna say your name wrong again, Brandon. Dees,
I think of Candace, but
Candace.
mother made
Got
up
it.
names.
Brandis.
I
Thank
didn't,
you.
it's not, yeah, I blame my parents. I was just gonna say, ours started from community gardens, and that would go to the Jewish Community Center pantry, which is in the center of the city. It very like, I would say devalued area of our city. It's very tattered by redlining, even in 2023. It's terrible here. And so that expanded to gleaning at different farmers markets. And so every week we go to a specific farmers market, and all that produce goes to that pantry. And then we go to another farmers market during the season that goes to our meal program. I think we used to just wash and prep vegetables and send it out to some of the larger shelters. So at least they would have vegetables to do something with. And I would say produce repurposing, which I couldn't say earlier, or I was trying to say a different word, is a large part of what we do. So, I'm just applying for a large grant for the coming years, and I would love a trailer. I can't buy anything expensive with it, but something to hitch onto my car. And then obviously more manpower for delivering food and delivering meals. We would expand our service to 2 days a week in a kitchen, and, hopefully get to 1,000 meals a week. And I would love to keep serving all the people we've made connections with, because everyone loves it and needs it. There's never an end. That's all I had.
Very cool. Thank you. Any of our other panelists? Thoughts on that one?
We also went to go meals because we came about during the pandemic. So that was everything had to be to go, and we just have kept it since then. We do our distribution in 2 ways. Out of one kitchen, we have to-go meals that are kind of, maybe a couple servings in each container. And also, we don't have any means testing, so anyone who wants to come can come. We have people who pick up for their neighbors or pick up for other people and deliver it. We have people who pick up for themselves. It's, kind of a range. And then out of our other kitchen is where we make congregant style meals. So big pans that can go to other organizations that do other things, and feeding is not their sole purpose. So after school programs, senior centers, that sort of thing. We have a general idea about how many meals that we can make the congregant style, and that's what we commit to. And then anything that we can make, should something come in and we can make more, we either will make more and freeze it for another week, or we'll just offer it to other people. So and it's similar to Marisha, where it's kind of first come first serve on our congregant list. Like we have our set people, and then we don't take on new ones until one of those drop off. And then for the people who come in person to pick up the to-go meals, it's really just first come first serve, and when we run out, we run out.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So we started our program. So the program that we're working on in the reduced waste space is called the Zero Waste Certification. And so what it essentially is a pilot program that we're doing right now within the city of Houston area called Fort Bend County, where essentially the leftover food that's in school cafeterias gets repackaged into microwavable containers for and to be distributed to children at the end of the day. And we thought of this program really, and it's not a very innovative program. It's been tried in different parts of the country, one in Illinois. But let me tell you, when we thought of the program, we thought, oh my God, we're the first ones. This is amazing. But we saw an Instagram video, and there's these kids, little kids, that took all of the apples in the cafeteria, the apples that their friends had collected on the lunch table, and they don't eat them. And it was like, we can't eat these because of braces. And that's how they were justifying what they're doing. What they're doing is putting it on their lunch tray and then tossing them like basketballs into the garbage can. And at the end, the kid says, "Mom, don't be mad. I can't eat them because of my braces." And then the video cut off, and we're looking at her like, so horrified. It's like, those are amazing apples that they're just tossing because they can't eat them. And that spurred a bigger conversation of what's going on. And we did a data deep dive and realized that so much of our food, especially in middle schools, for whatever reason, we won't go into that why, but it just gets tossed. And so we created a partnership with Stafford MSD. We reached out to a number of packaging suppliers, and essentially the school workers, the school nutrition workers, what they've been doing is they've been taking the pizza, the vegetables, and then just putting it into a microwavable container, and then taking those containers and putting them into the refrigeration units that they would have used anyways, that were just going unused. It takes them on average 47 minutes to repackage everything, which isn't that bad, considering that you have to take the container and then fold it and then put it in, put all the ingredients in, and then put it into the refrigeration unit. We've clocked them at about 47 minutes average. We're trying to get them down to 40 to 30 to 40 minutes right now. But we've got this pilot, it's running well, and we've got it down to 0% waste in Stafford right now. And what we're trying to do is create a shared table, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, where the kids can just put their apples and just their milk containers that they're not using, so we can supplement the package containers at the end of the day as well. And lastly, the kids get a insert with the container. It's not really an insert, it's a sticker that we had printed out. And so to close the container on top, because they're gonna take, what we found is they're taking the containers and they're shoving them in their backpacks, and guess what happens? It's when they open it, the container's up, everything's done, and the food's all over in their backpack. And we had a complaint from a teacher that there's food on the textbooks. So we're like, oh my God, the school district's going to shut us down because we're destroying their books. And so what we did is we printed out stickers that go on top of the container instead of using Scotch tape, and it has fun nutritional facts and reheating instructions, right? You just put it in 30 seconds in the microwave, or you put it on a pot with low heat. That way parents don't necessarily have to get involved. And so it's still in a pilot phase right now. Started off in an Instagram video, totally by, however you want to see it, by God or by chance. We hope to gather the data and then start expanding it into other school districts here in the Greater Houston area.
Very cool. Thank you. There was a couple of things in the chat, and Les, I feel like your question has been answered, but raise your hand if not. There was another question about how do you all handle packaging, especially in this effort to be more sustainable? Where do you source your packaging from, and what does that look like for those to-go meal containers?
For us, just generally speaking, that was a huge concern in the beginning. We didn't want styrofoam containers that were incredibly cheap. We wanted those cardboard microwavable ones, those were a little bit more costly, but we were able to purchase at scale. Now, I would say that if there's any other groups here that would like to join the project, then we can buy them in even more scale. But it's all about the scale, is really what it comes down to for us.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say about that. The scale is very real, especially when you have to buy. And right now with so our operations, like, it's about 300 to 400 meals in a week. And so not to the point where and then also, with the semester and how students are there and not there, it also really depends. So it's really hard to partner with some of the other bigger suppliers in wholesale aspects of things. We really don't have a space or capacity to even keep them. Actually, my office is filled with boxes right now, to the point where it's people can barely sit because there's not room in the kitchen anymore. And before funding runs out, we had to buy a bunch of those. So, that is one of the issues too, in terms of sustainability. How do you handle, that ebb and flow and doing in a way that works? But one thing that for now, works well sort of for us is approved vendors like Webstron for us or some other places. We can then buy somewhat in bulk and then ship it to us, and that's where we'll find compostable items and things. We used to do compostable items specifically only, like compostable to-go boxes, like with like 3 compartment. Very expensive. Definitely when COVID hit, it got even way more expensive to the point where we just can't sustain with that for our budget anymore. And so when we were looking into those different options, I'm happy to share a couple of different ones we tried, and from failures and attempts. So like the plates, for example, and so we would try to use plates for food and then put aluminum foil on top to kind of like use it as a sort of container. That only works well for folks who are on campus and kind of like they're very quick around, going to like another building or things like that. Definitely had a lot of issues with older community that when we were giving plates and they're trying to stack them up and they're in a wheelchair, and yeah, so it definitely was not a good idea. But then we had to kind of figure out with what we have for funding and how we can continue serving them, but also how do we get to a point where like we're not using the styrofoam containers. And so that was like a really hard point to like decide. But regardless, so we will have sometimes like styrofoam containers as like last resource when there's literally nothing left, and then we will focus on fundraising or getting funding or grants or sustainability initiatives and things to then continue funding some of these like containers like those. Plastic forks are another one. So I put in the link there about compostable forks. I thought those are very reasonable. Again, it's more expensive than other kinds that you can get, but still it's at least for us, we could purchase it at this point and then maintain it. And so I feel like that's kind of like give or take kind of thing. But so far what has been working well is those like foil container with like lids on top, because of their cost, and also we're able to then write like the menu and stuff like right on there, because one of the issues is like we would love to make the menu and eat within 2 hours, like temp check, kind of like food safety regulations in a nice food label stickers, but that means you have to buy printer and sticker and all the costs that continue to be a problem. And so I didn't want to start anything that students and our organization cannot sustain, and rather not start something new and won't be able to sustain it all. And so we choose not to purchase, and all the volunteers just handwrite everything on the on that paper on the container, and pretty much people kind of get that, and it's more personalized as well.
I would also like to say, just chime in real quickly, in terms of getting to scale. I know for a new project that could be really difficult. One of the things that we did was we identified the top sort of like eco-organic restaurants in Houston, and they were using the same types of paper boxes that we want to use, and we couldn't do styrofoam because you don't want to put styrofoam containers in the microwave anyways. And we just went and talked to them because they're already purchasing at scale. Said, can we pitched them the idea, was like, can you just buy more boxes and then we'll compensate you, and then we'll give you like a letter, and put like, we put like a whole certificate on the wall saying that they contribute towards food insecurity, makes them look good. But we just purchase from them at cost, and they purchase from Cisco, right? So we are able to immediately purchase boxes at scale for the initial stages of our pilot program.
Very cool. I have one last official question, and then we'll open up the floor to the rest of the breakout room. So there was a lot of, most panelists referred to their volunteer squads who help make, the things go. How do you find those volunteers? How do you keep them engaged? Danielle, I think, how do you find those professional chefs? How do you get your people to be the gears that make the things go?
You know, I was lucky to find our chef, and we worked out of a commercial kitchen last season, and this year we worked out of a church kitchen, and he was very honest about how he felt about the kitchen. And the church really wants to have us back, and it's a great relationship, but I kind of feel like he's special and I need to keep them happy because the food quality is just superb. Finding a retired chef is like who wants to cook is really challenging. So yeah, I'm very interested in hearing what Danielle has to say on that. I would say we rely heavily on volunteers. So just, I guess, calling them, emailing them, reminding them, thanking them when they come. We also feed them lunch, so if they so wish. So that's part of it.
Food is a great way to get folks on board.
Yeah.
We have a fair number of volunteers too, and we find that they come back again and again. You know, they're regulars, and they have formed relationships with each other, which really helps. I would say for our chefs, I mean, our chefs are so exceptional, and we are so lucky. I mean, lucky is not even enough of a word to describe them. We started out with just one chef, and then she really populated the team, you know, brought on people that she knew, that she had worked with in the past. All our chefs, our head chef is full-time. Our other chefs are part-time by design. They like that they can do other things like catering and other jobs, even though this gives them a kind of some regularity. They like being able to be chefs and also leave it by 3 to go get their kids, so they don't have to work nights and weekends. We pay pretty well. We pay significantly more than people would make in commercial kitchens. We're up to, I think, $26 an hour for our regular chefs. And we just really work hard to be joyful in our work, and just a good place to be for everyone. And we are, knock on wood, lucky that we have very low turnover, and we have chefs that want to work. You know, we have like a wait list basically of other chefs that want to come work with us.
I think that's a struggle with our program because it's seasonal and part-time. It's trickier to find that. So we've been trying to figure out just little niches, like having our chef become more of a mentor to other people, and then working in collaboration with other people re-entering the workforce as part of, an arrangement. And also it is a culture of kind. So it's a very nice place to land, even if it's part-time and seasonal.
I'll
Very
speak.
cool.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So when we were launching the mobile meals program, moving away from just taking food direct to our agency partners and making the individual meals, we couldn't find anybody that was doing exactly that, because we're not making any of the food. But we did bring on a chef for the first year of that program to help us build it out, having that bulk volume food handling, food safety. How do we turn 2,000 pounds into 1,000 meals in a short period of time? What do we need for refrigeration and tracking and everything? So it really works for us. We often get asked, well, if you had a chef, and because we do work with a church partnership too, so it's not a commercial kitchen. At this time, we're not required to be inspected by the health department because we're not making any food, although we still maintain the same food safety protocol that a commercial kitchen would make. And sometimes we have to get really creative because we're making culturally appropriate, nutritionally balanced meals, and how does that work sometimes with what you're given? So we've got to be creative in that. But just to say that the individual meals with rescued food is possible without a chef. If we had one, we could make more soup and combine things together and have a little bit more flexibility with the final product. But I would say that we put out really beautiful, delicious, well-balanced meals just simply by reportioning.
Thank you. Now I want to open up to folks in the breakout room. Go ahead and unmute yourself, raise your hand, pop it in the chat. Any questions for our panelists these last 10-ish minutes? This is from Kim and for Danielle. You live in a state that has passed an L3C low profit LLC legislation. Are you aware of any L3C companies involved in this work?
Not in food. I think the only ones that I've seen are there's some in social service. The empowerment plan, I think, is one. But not, I haven't seen any in food, no.
I have a quick question. If anybody in here, I don't have the answer to this, but through the Food Donation Improvement Act, my understanding was that it would allow food rescue organizations to charge a minimal amount for the food that they rescue and redistribute. So wondered if anybody is doing that or thinking about doing that.
Is that a federal law?
Yeah, it was just passed at the beginning of 2023, and it expands on the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. I think my understanding is that it gives jurisdiction to the USDA, which there was no jurisdiction before. I don't think that they have acted on that. And I believe that it also will allow donors to have the same liability protections if they're donating directly to individuals and not through a nonprofit. And then also there is that piece that you could charge a nominal fee just to cover the expenses to rescue and redistribute. At this time, we're not, I don't think there's enough clarification around that, but I feel like that's a decision, for us to make in the future, if we charge $1 a meal or what that looks like to help. Because I will point out too, as we're working on our budget for next year, is that direct from donor to recipient through a volunteer costs us like 10 cents a pound or something, to create a meal. But through our mobile meals program, packaging, labor, gas, all of the things, we're up to like $3.50 a meal. And we've got to, justify that too.
We don't have we don't currently charge, and we don't have plans to. Just sort of the culture in our neck of the woods is kind of like the other nonprofits are also really working on bootstrap, on not a lot. So we are really hesitant to charge them. And we instead then just try to go towards philanthropy and make them pay. They have more money, but that's just sort of the mood here.
Les, did you feel like your question in the chat earlier on got adequately answered? Okay, well, I totally had a question. Oh, can you all talk about how you are funded, if you can? Just to help give folks a general idea.
Yeah, we're a 501c3, so we are funded. We fund for our Veggie Chop Shop program, but we really rely heavily on the produce donation. Luckily, with a grant we received this year, I was able to give a pretty generous honorarium to the farmers, which I don't normally get to do. It's usually a $20 bill and a card, and it was $100 to 24 vendors. I would say 100% of them are Hmong. So it was just nice to give that. And so we just bank on those grants to get us a little, step above every year and our fundraisers, et cetera. But I did just, for instance, in June 27th, I made a meal. I had to go to Restaurant Depot. My bill was like $600. I had to buy produce there. And then my last meal was a week ago and I spent $100 there. So just saying, the proof that our program is successful is right there in that produce donation. I'd also like to, in the future, have more purchasing power and get other ingredients from the farmers for purchase. So, I'm not just gleaning, but I'm also paying all the farmers. I think that would be a fantastic next step.
I was going to speak on a couple of those different questions. So in terms of the funding, I was going to mention too, if anybody is looking into it, like a lot of student organizations or places on, universities' campuses do have or do get funding as well. And so that might be some sort of collaboration. Again, we're not talking about thousands of dollars to sustain your whole entire operation, but that has been one way that we have been able to partner with our community partners. And so, like I mentioned, like Food Chain or other places where they are still doing, a very similar model, but in a bigger capacity than how we are able to do with just students. But then there is a project and we want to evaluate this program, or and especially with like evaluation or collecting data, I feel like definitely looking into institution, faculty, staff, definitely that's how I feel like I'm able to connect with a lot of other folks, and then provide some of that financial incentives or assistance or research aspects of things or collecting data. And students are always wanting to get involved, credit hours that they get from those internship opportunities. And so I feel like there are so many ways, paid, unpaid, that you can definitely bring them in. Granted that you cannot say what level or professionalism or what level of proficiency and technical skills and knowledge and everything that they will bring as a student, but as long as you, I think, as like your organization and the people you work with can, I guess, like invest in this learning opportunity and have patience, then I think it can make it work. But I also understand there are times where it just don't work well. I have had a lot of pushback from people who I would reach out to or partner with, where we're just not set up in a way where I'm the only one who is paid and the rest of those are students, and the one that we can pay are all federal work study students, and so with that, it becomes really like a trust issues. It's like, can you even really do it, or you can just like come in for the semester and disappear from the face of earth, right, like for a month and then come back again. So I think, really trying to have those conversations and being transparent and talking about why it is important. And then what I've learned throughout these years with partners, and even like when we're talking about finding people to work with or to go meals or stuff, if we have any folks or partners who don't respect us or who are not understanding of student learning and trying to do their best and what we are doing in our operations, we just kind of like try to resolve it and not continue to, I guess, headbutt in that sense. And so at some point trying to bring some conversations, but at the same time, there are certain organizations and folks I feel like just not gonna work well. And so just going separate ways at some point, it's set, but also things that we have to do if you don't think alike. And so, yeah, I feel like hopefully some of those funding and resources and some other opportunities and things that you might have in your community and network of people, or if you're in some of those places that I might know some folks, I'm happy to connect you all with it.
Thank you. And Danielle.
We're a 501c3 too, and one of the things that have found successful recently is going to corporations. I feel like corporate giving is coming back a little bit, but the way we've done it is when we get calls from a company that wants to send a large group to come volunteer, we charge them. So it's $2,500 and we'll give you a great experience and we'll take care of you. And we'll even do a, if you want us to do a Zoom lunch and learn for the rest of the company. But it's sort of recognizing that it does take, we're not like a giant machine. So it does take effort to take care of groups that come. And we have found that the corporations are fine with paying that. So that might be something to look into as well.
It's a really interesting idea. I think we have time for just one more question before we pop back to the main room. Any parting thoughts or questions?
I just want to say, I'm sorry about that, Marisha. I just want to say, if any of y'all want to reach out and talk shop, I'd love to chat. I'm putting my full contact information here in chat, but the more of us that network together, and we already know this, I think we can help out a lot of children, a lot of people. Our focus is children, but we can help out a lot of people, a lot of Americans coming together. And I'm happy to talk shop, Zoom with you, get on a quick phone call and say what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, and maybe some policy hurdles that we faced along the way. So please feel free to use me as a resource anytime. Yeah, and my contact information is in Zoom chat.
Thank you so much, Marisha.
I was just wanted to say thank you to New York Food Rescue Network and just New York as a state. The state of the state this morning was just so eye-opening. We don't have any local or state incentives, much less requirements or regulation, around food donations. And, we would love to see that. And we'll work with our other working groups in the state. So just way to go, New York, for just raising the bar and setting the example, and then, sharing this material so that we can take to our potential food donors and that we can take to our legislators too. So just amazing work that y'all are doing.
Thank you. I see lots of chats and all of that. This breakout room has been recorded, so this will get combined with the other session. And with that, I want us to head back to the main room. So it's just a little blue button in the bottom corner-ish usually. Make sure you leave the room, not the meeting. So we'll see you back in the main room.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.